Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. I'm a Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And today we have a special guest from the United Nations. Our guest is Amina Mohammed, and she is a special advisor to the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, and is responsible for the global goals for sustainable development. Amina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Equal pleasure to be with you.
Oh, you're kind. Amina, give us a quick recap of the goals. I think there are 17 of them. We probably can't talk about all of them, but give us a sense of what we're talking about when we're talking about these goals.
Well, we had the Millennium Development Goals, 8 of those. So these 17 encompass the unfinished business of those goals that dealt with ending poverty, the gender goal for women, the water and sanitation, the hunger goal, inequality. So we have the social agenda, a set of goals, about 7 of them. And then we move to the economic goals that include cities and the inclusive economy goal. We also have the energy goal, and we have, what was the other one that we were really looking at, the inequality. So we then move to the environment, and that takes care of cities. It takes care of, as they say, life on Earth, a life above Earth, and life underwater. Basically speaking, what we're saying with our 17 goals is that they look at a whole picture of one's economy, one's social sector, which is all about people and about the planet.
The goals that we've set, the new goals that you've set, really aren't simply an extension of the old goals. It isn't just the unfinished business. What are some of the differences that you would highlight that come from what you've learned and from what we know more about the problems?
I think that the major difference is that we're now talking about a universal agenda. So it is about everybody and really leaving no one behind in every sense of the word. So whether we talk about it as a global village, or it's one about your country or your region, it really is getting down to that bottom person and starting from there up. The second thing is that it's an integrated agenda, and that we are looking at countries that are looking to transform their economies, but not do so at the expense of people, delivering services in health, in education, and not doing so at the expense of the planet. And that really is about our production and consumption. So if we're bringing anything new into this, it really is about the way our economies work, the way we respond to the complexities that we have in an integrated way. Before, what we've done is really a piece of the agenda and not the whole. So we've addressed trying to save a woman's life by building a clinic and perhaps putting 1 or 2 inputs in. We've not really looked at the system or the nurses and the doctors that are needed for it, or the access road, or the water and power to make it work on a day-to-day basis so that gains that we invest in are irreversible. It's about education and not just what we say a classroom, but what's the quality of the education you get and the skill set. So as a young person, when you come out, you can actually join the economy, you can get a job. And I think that that's very important, because today we have managed on the MDGs to get children into school, but they're coming out with less than a quality education and not the right skill sets.
So, Amina, what the old goals, the Millennium Development Goals, I shouldn't call them old. They just finally grew up to be matured this year. They're not old like I'm old. But the Millennium Development Goals did not focus much on the environment. So the addition of the environment, it seems to be a new thing as well. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'd say that it's a much deeper and broader look at the environment. We did have an environment goal. Goal 7 of the MDGs was just that. It went to water, sanitation, and the environment. But it wasn't as clearly articulated as the 3 that we have now, which are addressing climate change and the causes of it, which we know are man-made. So I think you're absolutely right. What's new is a much deeper look at the root causes and starting to look at the actions that we need to take for that.
I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the United States, there are a lot of people that don't buy the climate change story. I don't want to get into whether they're right or wrong. I think you and I would agree. But what I want to ask you is, what are the benefits of tackling climate change for those who are skeptical about it as a problem fundamentally? It seems to me there are benefits that may come regardless of whether you buy into the argument around the problem. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's been a difficult discussion to have, because for people to touch and feel this in their lives is a real problem beyond what the science will tell you. I think it's really important to look at around the world and around you what is changing. I was in Colorado the other day, and one of the things that one of the journalists asked me was that, you know, we've got a serious water problem here now. Our water table is going down, and we've got tensions around access to that water. Do you think that this could become a problem such as the conflicts that you see in other parts of the world around water? Now, I don't think that, you know, you'll have the same type of conflict, but there will be tensions between people and business and livestock. And this is a direct result of climate change, and the science is there behind that. I can give an example of my part of the country. I come from Northeast Nigeria, and that's where we have the crisis and tragedy of Boko Haram. When I went to school there, we had an enormous lake. It's called Lake Chad. And we would get in there, children, it would be get on a hovercraft, and we'd be thinking we were going to the UK. Today, it's a puddle. And that's exacerbated a lot of what has happened around that region, from livelihoods to really beginning the root causes of what's excluded people, what has put tensions around governance and ended up with, you know, a pretty big crisis on our hand, kids that, you know, are kidnapped and the terrorists that we have today. So I think climate change, with the natural disasters that we have, I mean, we cannot ignore that many of these are not natural disasters. We know that now. We will hear about hurricanes and typhoons, and we see lots of people suffering with this and losing their lives. And this can all be attributed to climate change. It puts a great deal of burden on the resources that countries have, and the sharing that we try to do of that around the world. So I think it is not an easy argument, but I think that if we continue to go the way we are, then, you know, everyone will be touched by it in one way or another. It's either the effects of it in terms of people's migration, or in fact that you're actually suffering it from yourself. I mean, we certainly did so in New York a couple of years ago with Sandy.
Well, clearly there's a lot of suffering going on because of environmental issues and climate change. I wonder, though, if, as you point out, there aren't some real benefits that accrue because of the work that you're doing. And as I talk about these benefits, what I'm referring to or intending to capture are the things like you're talking about, avoiding conflicts over water. If we stabilize water supplies around the world because we are in part caring for the environment, if we are reducing the severity of natural disasters like hurricanes because we are getting on top of it, seems to me there are real benefits that come whether or not you buy into the scientific arguments around climate change.
Yeah, I mean, the most important benefit for me is that you're saving lives. I mean, you know, human beings matter. And I think that that's something that sometimes for the huge challenges that we have every day with these disasters is forgotten. Every one life saved is worth it. And I think that, you know, that's a great benefit. But I think as we look at this and we look at the tensions we have in other aspects of our lives where young people are looking for jobs and need to be employed, and we're looking to find better ways and alternatives to the way in which we consume and produce in our lifestyles, that provides opportunity for innovation and for jobs for young people who are connected with the world of technology. Looking for resilience in many of our environments with the infrastructure that we put down today for instance, the small island states, or even in countries in Africa and Southeast Asia, like in Bangladesh, where the Delta is a big problem with rising sea levels. Finding all of that is creating jobs. That's a big benefit. And we really want to see that resources around the world give young people today an opportunity of a future that is more equal. And then I think, we really are talking about a world that will be more peaceful.
I think many people are just flat out skeptical that we can make the progress that the goals put forward over just the next 15 years. It seems impossible to people to eradicate extreme poverty. That just seems like it can't be done. As a for instance, I don't share that concern. But what do you say to people about that concern when you hear it?
I think it's a very real concern because people like to see that they achieve something with what they do when they engage with it. So if you want to make a difference in the world and the problem is presented as a big one, you're sort of grappling with how do I handle this big problem? But I think what you have to do is to take off the pieces that you can and know that you're an important piece of the whole. And what I say to people is take the first step. That's what I did in trying to make that difference. I knew that the problem was huge. One day soon, when people see the efforts that you make, you get the opportunity to do even more. And I think what's even better about it is you bring so many more people with you and you begin to see the effects of moving as a collective towards change. It certainly is for a young person when they look at the huge problems that we have, almost impossible to think of how you could do this overnight. It isn't an overnight thing, but it is a journey. And I think each step of that journey is important in one's life. I mean, I think that's the other thing about it is that you need to think about what sort of a journey your life ought to be like and look like, and start taking those when you're putting people at the center. I think that you find, you can do this and you can do it with many more coming along with you.
Amina, you are truly an inspiration to me and to countless others. The work you're doing is just inspirational. And so you become a role model. You become someone that people look up to, admire, and emulate. Who do you admire? Who do you emulate? Who do you look up to as a role model?
Well, it's a huge responsibility to think that one's an aspiration, and that's something I live with every day. I just do things as I see they would try to make a difference, as I said, in everybody's life. If I'm admiring any one person, that's almost impossible because every day in my life I come across people that I really do admire. But I've got two categories, and I'm really sorry not to give you the right answer of one particular person, but I've got those that are not with us today. And certainly Mandela, certainly, Mother Teresa and Gandhi. These are people who live the courage of their convictions. And I think that that's what we need to find again, that core to us that allows us to go out there and live the courage of our convictions. They did that. And that those that are alive today, that there are three that come to mind for me. There's a person no one knows because she works day in, day out on issues that are about women's rights and looks to give legal cover for that in my country. Her name's Saudatu Mahdi. And she's just an incredible person. She tries to manage her life, her marriage, her children, the difficulties in a place like it in northern Nigeria. But she's never, ever, she's never left the course. She stays with it, and every day she finds a reason to do more. So, that's a huge admiration for that spirit. The other two are a governor in the region that has Boko Haram, who has never left his responsibility, who's always been on the front line with his people, even as a politician when he could have. He didn't. And he's still there today, determined to give his people back the peace that they had when he came into government. And I think that that's, incredible to see that he has that courage to hold true to what he came to do, which was serve people. Not many people serve their populations. Last but certainly not least is the Pope. And I think he's just great. He's huge. Just because he began to speak about social inclusion when he came, and when the Vatican at that time was really embroiled in a lot of negative, I think, press, and probably rightly so in many cases. But what he did was he turned it around, not to ignore the issues, but to bring on social inclusion, to talk about it. Two words that I think are really have resonated for me every day of my life, and dealing with what he said was the globalization of indifference. And I think that that's what's happened today, is everyone turns their cheek the other way and, never mind what's there. If I can't see it, it doesn't matter. And I think he too, again, lives the courage of his conviction. And these are people that I look up to. So perhaps they're all embodied in the courage of your conviction.
Well, it is really a great example you raise of the Pope. living his conviction, the courage of his convictions. And so great response. You know, as you go about your daily routine, you are tremendously successful, and you, as I say, you've done so much, you're doing so much, your impact on these issues couldn't be more global, more impactful. So can you give us one suggestion? Everyone who's watching wants to do more good. What's one thing that you do every day that helps you to be successful that we should be doing?
Well, I mean, my day life, my day job has always been what I've wanted to do. I've been really privileged. I've looked for things to accomplish in a time frame and gone after them. I think one of the things I do every day is look at the people around me. From the time I leave my home, from the receptionist to the taxi driver, to the security man, to my colleagues in my team, every single one of them I draw on to see what are the things that we could do better. So I talk to a lot of people a lot of the time, and I never walk past anything or anybody without acknowledging that person. I think often that we walk past people without even seeing them. I try not to do that. And I'm always looking for the next job. I mean, quite frankly, it's never done. So when I finish this, I know I'm going to go back to Nigeria and implement what we've charged ourselves with. But I look to try to bring along as many people as possible and finding the things that we need to do. From better teamwork to a whole program or project. Nigeria president one day gave me an incredible job by asking me to spend $1 billion a year on trying to attain the MDGs. I mean, that was just sort of like Christmas come 20 times over to do that. So I think it's just taking, you know, everybody with you and finding the things to do and do them the very best way you can. And it doesn't really matter what. If you find yourself one day having to sell bread on the side of the street, well, just sell the best bread ever. I think it's putting your best foot forward on everything.
That's great. I love your recommendation to acknowledge everyone. That is just such a kind-hearted thing, a way to approach the world. One last question before we let you go. How do you, why do you do what you do? You could be doing anything. You're an extraordinary woman. You could be doing anything. Why devote your life to the service of others?
I think life is about people. People ask what matters to you, and people do matter to me. I'm always got a home full of people, and I think that gives me the quality of my life. But I've been brought up in a society where it's about giving, and it's about sharing. You share the happiness, you share the sadness, you share the burden. And one of the things that, you know, I'm totally intolerant of is injustice and exclusion. That's something I cannot tolerate, and I live every day to try to make a difference that way. I've never given much thought to many of the questions I'm asked. I just do what Nike says, just do it. If it's good and it's got people at the center, I learn all the time. I think life is about learning every day. I didn't know as much about the planet and the environment until when I got into this job, and I had to know about that if I was selling an agenda that leaving no one behind, and just, you know, really absorbing the knowledge and the expertise of people around you who are so brilliant, and you take off them and you use it. And I think that I hope that, you know, I am that sort of vessel that can carry this and can do good, and that's just it. I mean, what else?
That's great. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We're just thrilled to have had you. Before you go, please tell us how people can learn more about the Global Goals for Sustainable Development and how they can learn more about connecting with you.
Well, you know, we've got certainly you can follow us on Twitter, and that there are websites, numerous numbers of them with the United Nations, but it's the Action 2015 that is the one, UN.org/Action 2015. And that's where we want everyone to be, really building the momentum. It's so important what you do in your holiday. This is a one time that you've got downtime. Sit as a family and really talk about what it means to be part of this human family, what it means about taking care of the environment around you. The planet can do without us, but we can't do without it. And I think what's really important is this incredible opportunity of this generation ending poverty within the next 15 years. But it's also about us being a generation that can bend the curve on climate change. It is man-made, which is why we want more women involved. we underscore that man bit. Take that away and we'll all get it.
I love that insight. It's man-made, so we need to get more women involved in the solution. Thank you, Amina, very much for being with us today. We wish you every success.
Thank you, and please join us.
Will do. Let's do some good.